Hi, everybody. The Fertility Hub online retreat here with you, Lorraine, Drohan, Soul Baby Whisperer. I am so delighted that you are all here and that you are gaining wonderful wisdom, wonderful new ideas, new ways of looking at your fertility. And that's what this summit is all about, this retreat is all about. And today is no exception. I have a wonderful guest with us here today, Emmi. She is an intuitive healer, wisdom keeper, and a womb awakening shaman and teacher. She's dedicated to reawakening ancient feminine wisdom. She facilitates deeply transformational healing processes for women of all ages around the world, holding a safe, protected and non-judgmental space for the emergence of authentic connection, profound knowing, and inner power. You can work with Emmi one-on-one and in groups, both online and in person, as well as retreat settings. Wow. She also hosts a podcast called Sacred Feminine Power, where she introduces the voices of soul sisters and brothers dedicated to the path of the divine feminine and stepping into their sacred feminine power in their own unique ways. It is all about being unique, our unique selves, isn't it? Very much so. Emmi is trained in various healing modalities, including EFT and matrix re-imprinting, Heal Your Birth Protocols, Usui and Lightarian Reiki, and Zen Shiatsu. Shiatsu? Shiatsu. I said it right the first time. Thank you. She's an innate to a South African shamanic lineage and trained as a womb awakening and feminine embodiment facilitator. I have to take a breath after all that, Emmi. Wow, welcome, welcome, welcome. You are so welcome here today. And I know you have huge wisdom to give. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to this beautiful forum. It's an absolute honor to be speaking with you today.
Thank you, Emmi.
Yes, well, you have given quite an introduction to me already, but maybe just to mention as well that my absolute passion is to support women and take them on journeys of healing and transformation. And I have been so very blessed in my life to be able to support women who have had miscarriages in the past, who carry trauma perhaps from abortions, or who have maybe lost a child in their lives, to be able to conceive and be able to carry a pregnancy to term and to give birth to a healthy child after that healing process. And it is one of the most precious things to be involved in, to support women and their partners sometimes as well in that field and in that area.
Oh, I can absolutely agree with you with that. Absolutely. It's phenomenal what the connection that we make with our clients is just absolutely phenomenal. So a bit more about yourself. How did you get on this journey? What happened to you? I know you had an incredible experience with a friend. Would you like to tell us a bit more about that?
Right. Okay. Well, that's a small part of my journey, basically. And that experience relates to something that I call the sister wound, which is a very deeply ingrained wound that is all about how women relate to each other. Yeah. How we tend to pull each other down rather than lift each other up and support each other in different ways. And we also tend to compare each other quite a bit, compare ourselves to other women, often to our own detriment. Yes. And we also tend to engage in quite a bit of gossip and backstabbing and behavior that basically isn't very supportive. And my own experience with the sister wound, in hindsight, started way back in early childhood. But it was only a few years ago when I met a woman with whom I became very, very close friends very quickly. We were very kindred souls and we connected at a very deep heart level. And we shared the same passions, we shared the same goals. And we were talking about starting to run retreats together. Retreats are my absolute baby. I love doing retreats. It's my happy place. And that's why
Wonderful.
I'm so excited about our collaboration and our potential co-creation as well.
Yeah.
And because we both lead very busy lives, we didn't meet very often. But then after a break of a few months, she invited me over for lunch and I went over and we were having a wonderful time chatting. And then all of a sudden, she just mentioned to me that she was about to run a retreat in a couple of weeks' time and had not even mentioned that to me in any way at all. And in that moment, I truly felt like the ground underneath my feet just fell away. Like I fell into a deep hole and I literally felt dizzy at that point. And it felt like a very, very deep betrayal, very much to my core. And I'm not quite sure how I managed to finish the lunch and then drive home from there because I was feeling so devastated in that moment.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
the thing was that this experience stayed with me. It wouldn't go away. And I kept on working on it myself. I kept on asking my teachers and my colleagues for help to try and clear it. And it just wouldn't budge. And usually, experiences like that can be released quite quickly. And this
Yeah.
one just stayed. It just stayed. And at the back of my mind, I somehow knew that there was something much, much deeper at play here, but I couldn't quite grasp it. But then synchronistically, I started to find books and articles that were describing the sister wound in its various forms and talked about the historic collective experiences of women, which we all carry deep within our bodies, inside ourselves. And here I'm referring to experiences like the witch hunts, where women were literally made to denounce each other. Mothers were denouncing their daughters, sisters were denouncing each other, best friends were betraying each other simply because they had to. They were fearing for their lives and
Fearing.
they
Yeah.
really had no other choice. And the witch hunt is a very dramatic example, but it is perhaps the most potent way to get the message across as well, in the sense that we have for hundreds, if not thousands of years, been forced into a context or molded into a context where we are fearing our own power
Yeah.
and we are made to compete with each other in ways that are very, very unhealthy. And once I understood that, and once I started unraveling those wounds within me, within my cellular system, that's when the healing really truly started to happen. And of course, it was really nothing to do with my friend in the end at all. She was free to do whatever she wanted,
Yes, of
and if
course.
she chose not to do a retreat with me, that's perfectly fine. She had her reasons. But for me, because of this historical wounding,
Yes.
collective wounding that I was subconsciously carrying, it was a big deal for me, much bigger than I even realized. And I consider this friend now my biggest teacher, one of my biggest teachers. And I am truly blessed and thankful for this experience because it really launched my healing work on a platform that is much bigger than what it used to be. And I have created a whole program around what I call the 5 core feminine wounds, in which the sister wound is a big, big part.
This resonated with me so much. It's only in the last couple of months that I have learned myself that I was a witch in a past life and that I was burned at the stake. And
Right.
all morning, Emmy, I have to tell you, I have a sense of burning, a smell sense
Yeah.
of burning all morning. So I know why we're here today. Something is clearing for me with being able to
Yeah.
be talking to you with you. So thank you so much for this. That is profound, what you've just said there, because it would have affected a lot of us women.
Mm. Yeah,
It was a
pretty
long
much
period
all
of
women.
time.
Yes, absolutely. Because we know now through the science of epigenetics that we can take on wounds and trauma and experiences and limiting beliefs and patterns, not just through our own lineages from our mothers and fathers and grandparents and way beyond, but also from other lifetimes and also from the collective experience of women as a whole, globally.
You know, when you think about it, we wonder, how the hell do we even survive up to where we are now?
Yeah, by placing loads and loads of layers of protection and walls around ourselves and burying stuff deep within ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you for that share, and thank you for being so vulnerable, giving that share as well. It's very clarifying. As I say, it just really so resonated with me, and I know it's going to resonate with a lot of women that are listening to this as well. So, why is conscious connection with our wombs so important?
That's a big question, and I love talking to this point. I'll just start with the statement that our wombs are sacred cauldrons of feminine power.
Wow.
Our wombs are filled with deep ancient wisdom and enormous healing potential. And through our wombs, we also create. We create our lives. We create new life within our wombs. But we also create art or artistic projects. We create, new projects. We bring our dreams and visions into reality through our creative center, which is our womb space on many levels. And I like to also call it a cauldron of inner alchemy, because there is so much magic that we can create by working with the energies inside our wombs and clearing and cleansing the energy within our wombs and bringing in energies that are nurturing and healing and supportive to us. And then, of course, to new life within ourselves as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the more consciously we learn to work with our womb spaces, the more of that wisdom and the more of that power we start to tap into. And our wombs become safe spaces where we can go within and connect with ourselves, our inner guidance, and also with our guides, our spiritual guides, our lineage guides, our ancestors. It provides that portal into other dimensions when we learn to use it in that way. And of course, our menstrual cycle as well, which originates and stems from within the womb, also very intricately and innately connects us to the celestial cycles, the cycles of the moon and the sun, and also to earthly cycles in terms of the seasons. And also the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, as we are shedding the layers of blood from our womb spaces during our moon time, during our bleeding.
Wow.
And absolutely. I know that's a lot already. So
Yes, I know a lot of people often ask, when you say a cycle, what do you mean? Because we don't think of the likes of, the seasons, but you have the moon cycle as well. So this is huge. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the more we work in tune with the cycle, especially of the moon, because the moon, the grandmother moon, is a very feminine space, a very feminine element. And the more consciously we work with the moon, the more we can also bring healing to our menstrual cycles. Because a lot of women do suffer from extremely painful cycles or erratic cycles. And with the way we've been conditioned to think about our menstruation, a lot of us are also either ashamed of our bleeding or completely fed up with it. It's almost like a curse for a lot of people, especially for the ones from the older generations. But I do find still women who are perhaps my age or younger who still consider their bleeding a curse, especially if they come from a culture where bleeding is considered dirty. And you wouldn't, for example, be allowed to enter a holy space or a temple if you are bleeding.
Yes.
So there's a lot of cultural conditioning around that as well. And the more we learn to let go of that and see beyond it and really consciously work with our cycles, the more our lives will become enriched and enlivened because of that.
Absolutely. I mean, again, it's very much for me, what's coming here is the masculine and feminine vibration. and the masculine have very much ruled the feminine. And of course, we've allowed it to a certain extent as well. But also, I mean, a lot of religions were birthed with men, and the men were the leaders initially. And I think this is where a lot of cultures are getting a lot of this about the woman, and about the woman being a subservient. And yeah, it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one to shift. It's a difficult one to what's the word, honor, I think, until you really understand, as women, we are on a completely different time cycle, even to man, to mankind, not mankind, but to man, to males. That's the word I'm trying to think of. To males, you know, because they go on a 31 day cycle. We are 28 day. And then out of that time, we need to sit and relax for at least 2 to 3 days while we are bleeding.
Absolutely. And that is such a unique experience for all of us. And the more we honor our body's innate sacred rhythms and really listen to what we need, that's another thing, that when you start to consciously work with your womb space, you really start to view your body as your temple. You start to view your body as the sacred container that holds your spirit, your true essence. And the more you honor your body and the more you honor your natural cycles, the more in tune you are again with your inner knowing, and the easier your life is. The more flow you are inviting, the more abundance you are inviting into your life. And there's this deep process of surrender and trust when you allow yourself and open yourself up to this kind of a relationship.
Absolutely. And again, I know a lot is coming up with regards to this retreat so far in all of these interviews, is connection, the deep connection. You talk about the womb being that creative space. You talk about the womb having your connection with spirit. Because often we think of that in our heart space, or even our third eye up here more. But now to bring it down into our womb, I mean, this is phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think it's super important, especially at the moment, all the changes that we're experiencing on our planet at the moment. Our planet is going through a massive evolutionary shift. The planet is ascending towards 5D consciousness. And in order for us as humans to be able to tag along with that process and support that process as well, it's really, really important that we descend first into our bodies, into our womb spaces, into Mother Earth, because these are high frequency energies and our bodies are literally changing as part of the process. So we really need to bring that inwards. We need to be grounded and stand strong in our power. And the more, again, we work with our womb spaces, the more we are bringing it inside, deep, deep inside, and then are able to transform the energies into something that nourishes and nurtures ourselves, our families, a seed of life that might be within you, and then exponentially also the whole of humankind and the whole of the planet.
Absolutely. You know, the womb is such an important factor of life, death, polarity.
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
you know, it's a blessing. Whether you choose to become a mama or not, it doesn't make any difference. It is just such a great honor to be here on this planet at this time as a feminine woman.
Absolutely. And I think it's also important to mention that even if you no longer have a physical womb space, you can still absolutely connect with the energy of your womb and the energy of your cycles. And men also have an energetic womb space called the hara that they can consciously work with as well.
Oh, interesting. So is that with regards to their around where their sexual organs are as well, or is that whereabouts is that located?
It's around the same space where a woman's womb is.
Womb is. Okay.
Yeah, so it's the hara, the central tummy area, deep inside the lower belly. It's the core of the energy in your body in many ways.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a new one on me. I love that. Thank you, Emmi. Thank you for that.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
why have so
Yeah.
many of us lost this connection?
Hmm. Well, I think it's first and foremost really important to remember that ancient civilizations really did revere the womb space. They understood what we would now call womb cosmology to include a great primordial womb, the primordial black hole, the dark void that is the origin or birther of all life. And we have evidence of this from many, many different, especially indigenous and aboriginal cultures that have creation myths that involve an image or symbol or stories around this dark void or the primordial womb. And this, of course, is also related to the belief in or the reverence of the Great Mother. So an understanding that there is a bigger entity out there, something that created all of us. And it's very closely linked to also goddess energies, but often known as referred to as the Great Mother, as opposed to what many of us, especially in the predominant religions, including Christianity and Islam and so on, we are more used to hearing about the Great Father. Whereas in the early times, in the earliest of times, and we go way back to the very origin of humankind, there was a Great Mother that was revered and honored, and really was the central element of these cultures in many, many ways. And we also know this through archaeological digs and excavations that have revealed a number of symbols that relate to the womb, that relate to the breasts, and relate to the vulva and the vagina on cave walls and in objects and so on. You can just think about the Venus of Willendorf from 25,000 BC. That is this voluptuous statue of a woman in whom her breasts are very much accentuated, her hips are very much accentuated, her tummy is accentuated, and also her vulva is also very prominently on display. And in those times, this is what people revered because they understood that this was the beginning of life, the birther, the creator, and the nurturer of life. And women, as the holders and carriers of physical wombs in their bodies, were also revered for their role as the birthers, creators, and nurturers of life. And it was women who held high positions in society, leadership positions, both spiritual leadership, shamans, priestesses, and teachers, as well as leading of groups and villages and whole bigger entities as well. So they were really revered for this role. And it was also this very same power that over time became scary for a lot of people, and especially for men. And with the rise of more patriarchal civilizations, the goddess revering, the Great Mother revering cultures and systems and processes were really systematically silenced and destroyed to a large extent. And we can see evidence of this, for example, if you look at statues from ancient Egypt, where statues that depict Hathor or Isis, you know, prominent female goddesses, and Hathor being the Great Mother in the Egyptian cosmology, having their noses hacked off in a number of statues or relics on the wall. So they have been on purpose destroyed and decimated. Absolutely. And then, of course, we talked about the witch hunts already as being such a concentrated, widespread practice of breathing fear into people's minds, into people's hearts, and really making sure women who were healers, herbalist, midwives, women who simply were not afraid to speak truth or stand strong in their power, were not just silenced, but really punished for their skills and their gifts and their talents, tortured and often killed for these powers. that they held. Another example, sorry, did you want to ask something?
No, it's just your, unfortunately, your Wi-Fi is breaking up a little bit on us. But just to
Oh.
repeat that again, just very much in Egypt, that a lot of the statues from the likes of Isis and Hathor have been disseminated, their nose and that have been taken off. And then, of course, that led into the witch era, the witches era, where women were burnt at the stake. Is that what you were saying, roughly? Have I missed
Yes,
anything?
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I was saying. Yes. Yeah. Sorry about the connection. I really hope that it holds for the rest of the interview. Yeah.
No, whatever
Yeah.
reason, you see, they're still working, that they don't want us to be heard still, Emmi. Yeah. So
Good point.
I'm making sure we're being heard. Now it's time for us to be heard. Yeah.
True. Thank you for that. Yeah. And maybe on the witch hunts, just to emphasize that it was women who were generally known as healers or midwives or herbalists, or women who were not afraid to speak up or stand strong in their power, who were punished for their power or for their skills and their talents. And there was this whole systematic breeding of fear in the hearts and minds of people all around. And that wounding is still very much within us. And in addition to that, I mean, we can also, I already briefly mentioned this, but if you look at the context that we have been raised in, very often our menstrual blood, which is, by the way, a sacred substance filled with enormous healing potential and capacity as well, is made to be something that is dirty, something to be ashamed of, something to be pushed aside and considered a nuisance, if not something to be ashamed of. And in similar vein, there's all the shaming of our most feminine body parts, our breasts, our vulvas, our vaginas. We're not supposed to talk about them. We're not supposed to see them openly. And very often they become the mere objects of pornography or sexual objectification.
Yes.
And desires rather than objects of reverence and something that is sacred and something that should be protected and nurtured. We can also think about hysterectomies that happened a lot amongst the indigenous populations, but also amongst women in general in the Western countries as well. Women who were emotional or women who were considered to be too strong in their opinions, women who had fluid retention. I mean, some of the reasons are absolutely ridiculous, but they were forced to undergo hysterectomies. Their wombs, their sacred feminine cauldrons were forcibly removed from them as an act of subjugation. And that is something that we also carry within ourselves and within our own wombs. And one more thing that I wanted to emphasize was the over-medicalization of the most natural of processes for women, which are pregnancy and childbirth. And this is not to say that there are no cases where hospitalization or medical observation and treatment are absolutely necessary. Of course they are. And so many lives have been saved thanks to modern medicine around that. But generally, we kind of have been led to think that our bodies don't know what they're doing and that we need constant observation, constant monitoring throughout our pregnancy and throughout our labor, that we absolutely have to go to the hospital to give birth, and birth will always be a painful process. And this is the paradigm that we are being taught from a very early age. My daughter, who's now 12, has been telling me for years that she doesn't want to have children because it's going to be painful. And, you know, where is she getting that from? You know, not from me.
No.
So where is she getting it from? And it's all around us. And it's picked up from the TV, it's picked up from social media, and it is just the norm. And we need to start unraveling that norm and remembering that our bodies know what they are doing. Our bodies were made to be pregnant, to become mothers, to go through these processes that are absolutely natural and organic.
And again, can I add, you know, when you choose to become a mama and a papa, that is the moment you become a mama and a papa. You don't wait till
Absolutely.
you actually conceive, because then you take control of your body and you say, this is exactly, I'm preparing my body now. And the woman especially has to surrender. She surrenders her
Yes.
body completely over. So she needs that time of preparation. And, you know, I feel very much so. And then to attract in the beautiful soul baby in. So, I mean, this is massive. This is a huge turnaround on how we can see how powerful we are as females. But not just that as well, with regards to the birth. I know
Yes.
what I do is get my clients to connect to their totem animal, and they take
Ah,
on the essence of their totem animal, and it really empowers them. It really gets them to feel connected and grounded here. The reports back have just absolutely been phenomenal. And I
mm,
feel that we learn from the animal kingdom, you know, to birth, you know, to birth naturally. To birth doesn't have to go on for days. It
mm.
doesn't have to go on for days. It doesn't even have to go on for hours. So it's very much that connection again, isn't it? Very much the
Yeah.
connection. You work with your soul baby, you work with your child, and you work with your own body. And then, of course, having the assistance around that, you're making you confident, making you feel comfortable, but all working
Absolutely.
together. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you, as you correctly said, that deep surrender to that whole process and the deep trust that things will go the way they are meant to go for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, really, when you think about it, it is totally out of our control. Even as a mama to be, you know, it really is up to the soul baby.
Yes, absolutely. And the more we connect with the soul baby when she or he is inside our womb spaces, the more powerful our experience will be from the onset. And connecting with our womb space is creating a nurturing space for the soul baby, and then forming that connection with the soul baby from a very, very early age is
Yeah,
beautiful, beautiful and powerful.
absolutely. I think we're going into into our next question. So, how do we regain conscious connection and heal trauma within our womb space?
Mm. Well, there's of course many, many different ways to do that. For me, the number one thing is really to start to practice connecting with your womb on a daily basis. Initially, it might feel difficult. It might be difficult to hear your womb's messages, especially if you have not done this kind of work before. But the more you dip into that space of surrender, of trusting, and just keep listening, the more your womb will start to speak to you. And the way I support women to do this is through guided meditations and guided journeys that really allow you to go deep within. And very often then also connect with Mother Earth and to connect with the primordial womb, the great cosmic womb, that are both there to
Yeah,
support you in so many ways and in so many levels, and bring a sense of power and presence to your womb space as well. And if even the meditation and the guided journeys are still difficult for you, and the accessing just doesn't simply happen for whatever reason,
yeah,
then I would bring in other methods like tapping, for example, that are very powerful and very beautiful in us being able to access our subconscious very quickly, access our emotions very quickly,
yeah,
and also work with any parts of ourselves that might be holding on to trauma and might be preventing that conscious connection with our womb spaces. The thing here is that our womb spaces, as much as they are our cauldrons of wisdom and power, they also carry and hold on to a lot of trauma.
yeah,
And this trauma relates to our own unique life and soul experiences. And often in the womb space, it is around unhealthy sexual relationships, around sexual abuse that we might have experienced,
Yeah.
or the loss of a child, whether that's a stillbirth or an early death of a child, or a miscarriage or an abortion, that leaves its scars inside our womb spaces as well.
Yes.
It could have to do with our own birth experience, how we came into this world, because very often there is a lot of trauma around that as well, that we have buried very deep within our subconscious. As well, stuff that our mum is holding on to during that moment of childbirth. And then, of course, if you've given birth to other to babies already, there might be some trauma around those processes, some fears that you might have taken on that could be hindering either your ability to become pregnant, to carry a baby to full term, or hold on to a lot of fear about the upcoming labor and the actual birth process. And importantly, again, I do want to emphasize that we also hold on to trauma from our mother, from our grandmother and our great-grandmother, and well beyond that, way back down through our lineage. That is absolutely possible, and a lot of us do that. And I think it's important to remember as well that when your mother was inside the womb of her grandmother, you as an egg were already forming inside your mother. And that means that you would have been picking up on the energies of your mom and your grandmother whilst you were there in an egg form. And because everything is energy, because we are all connected,
Yes,
those energies stay within ourselves and can, in some cases, lead to and result in often unexplained fears and unexplained worries and anxiety around the process of becoming pregnant or giving birth. And once we start to clear this, once we get to the root cause of the trauma, the root cause of the fear that is living inside our womb spaces, we can truly transform the energetics of our wombs. We can truly change the atmosphere inside our womb so that it becomes one of light and love and is as supportive and nurturing for new life as possible. And that, of course, takes conscious work, but it is beautiful how quickly it can happen once you start to do that work, especially when you do it with guidance and facilitation from somebody who's experienced in these kinds of methods and is able to hold that sacred space for you during that healing process.
Yeah, that is important. We're never meant to do this journey on our own. Again, back to connection again. Absolutely.
Yes.
And
yes.
And even when the child is here, you're not to be a mama on your own at home thinking you've stuck at home. Even during COVID-19, reach out onto the internet. There are loads of women that are in a similar position and want to talk. And there's loads of groups, there's loads of communities. I know people don't like social media, but really it's a great way to connect. It is an amazing way to be able to connect. And then to meet lovely people like you that can even bring them on a deeper journey. I'm totally in awe of all of this. I really am. And a lot of what you have said very much is how I work with the womb as well, and how I work with my clients. And this is a deep level. When you hear everything that can cause blocks within us, energy blocks, energetic blocks, it's no wonder there is so high a report of infertility. And especially when over 25% of couples are told they're infertile, but there's nothing physically wrong with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are also seeing a rise in all kinds of womb-centered or womb-related illnesses, from endometriosis to, fibroids and yes, absolutely. And very often these illnesses also have an underlying emotional and energetic cause. And once you get to that underlying cause and you work with that and you release the emotional and the energetic charge around that, absolutely wonderful things start to happen.
Once the energy is cleared, it's allowing the miracles in.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
You've made space. It's a little bit like decluttering your cupboards. You know, you make
Indeed.
space to bring in the new, welcome in the new.
Indeed, absolutely, yes. And if I can still just mention, I have two children. My son, who's now 14, was born through a cesarean. And for me, that was quite a traumatic process in itself because I wanted to give
Mm,
birth naturally, but he
yeah,
was a breech baby, and the doctors just wouldn't allow for me to even try. So I was scheduled for a cesarean coincidentally on the same day that I actually went into labor then in the end. But for me, the experience of going through a cesarean was a very abstract process. It left me feeling very disempowered,
yeah,
and also the behavior of the nurses and the doctors in the operating room was not as nurturing as it could have been.
right.
So, whilst there are women who absolutely have wonderful experiences with a cesarean section, absolutely, and have very supportive nurses and teachers, for me, that was a traumatic process. And I've done a lot of work on myself and on that birth process to feel empowered again and to change the beliefs that I took on during
Yeah.
that process as well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, you know, we get drugs, you know, we're taking drugs to have the cesarean section and painkillers and all of that. And that makes the disconnection because that has a knock-on effect to the baby as well. I know I'm not saying it's a bad knock-on effect, but it disconnects mother and
Mm,
child. And therefore
yes.
our birth is so important. I do birth regression as well with my clients, and it's amazing what comes up for
Mm,
them. It's absolutely phenomenal, and like that, it's coming from the womb. They're feeling that
yeah.
energy, they're feeling that pressure. It's like a pressure that comes up and then it's just
Mm,
suddenly dissipates and they feel lighter. I suppose there's no other way of explaining it very much, and of course it's different for everybody. But certainly, as you go
mm,
through this work and you uncover these layers, you feel lighter. There's a sense of you becoming lighter. Would you agree?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And it's very much a physical experience of feeling lighter because the
Yes.
energy has been lifted from you. And at the same time, it's a very beautiful, sacred, spiritual experience where you just are in a completely different space after that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we're always saying, you know, shine your light out, you know, shine, make it shine brighter. And this is exactly what it feels like every time you do this amazing work. It's yeah, it's
Mm.
phenomenal. It really is. So I am hoping everybody has gotten enlightenment on this. For me, it's been absolutely amazing. Getting different connections that I hadn't quite connected yet, going on a very deep level, and yet outwards up to the womb of the universe. I mean, mind blowing.
Thank you. Thank you so
Absolutely
much.
mind blowing. Thank you, Emmy. This has been absolutely phenomenal. How can people connect with you, my love?
Hmm. So I have a website, femininerevered.com, where you'll find a lot of information about the work that I do and information about upcoming programs and retreats and so on as well. And I also have a free downloadable ebook around the 5 core feminine wounds that can be downloaded through my website if you are interested in finding out more about the sister wound and the other core feminine wounds that are part of my program. And I also have a Facebook site, the Feminine Revered, and I'm also on Instagram under Emmi Mutale. And
Beautiful.
I,
All
of
the
course,
links.
a mailing list as well.
Good, good.
I also
Yes.
have a mailing list. So if you go to my website, you can also subscribe to my mailing list so that you can be updated about, upcoming offerings and services, and also hear bits and pieces about my life story. I tend to share quite openly about different experiences that I've had in the past and that are going on in my life at the moment. So if that is of interest to you, then you can subscribe to that as well.
Wow. Yes, 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 yes. It's always lovely to get to know the person that your soul is getting you to connect with. So certainly thank you so much for being so vulnerable. Thank you for being so wise. Thank you for giving so much here today. It's just
Yeah.
absolutely been phenomenal. It really has. It's just been yeah, just I'm feeling like as if we're connected as one. That's what I'm feeling, that it's just this whole universe, not just the world, this whole universe is getting smaller. I don't know if you're sensing and
Mm.
feeling that, but that's what I'm feeling. And it's yeah, it's powerful. It's powerful. Absolutely. Emmi, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your
Yeah.
generosity. The links will be below this as well for people to be able to contact Emmi. And we would love to hear some sort of feedback on this. I think this will, I don't mean to trigger a lot of people. It'll get you really thinking about your body, getting you really to feel into your body. Because a lot of the time we don't feel into our body. We're too much trying to cope with things that are happening outside of ourselves. So thank you, everybody. Looking forward to the next one. Namaste. Have a great day.